guys, how you doing? I'm Takashi from Japan. So today I came to one of the coldest city in Japan, Sapporo. By the way, have you watched this video?
I was born and raised in Tokyo, Japan. My family's been living in Japan for the past 3 generations. So that means all 4 of my grandparents moved to Japan in the 50s and 60s.
So now I'm going to interview his grandfather who has been in Japan since 1960. I'm so excited to interview someone like him who knows 60s Japan, 70s Japan, 80s Japan. Okay, let's get started. Thank you for your time. Could you introduce your background? When did you come to Japan?
Hello everybody, I'm Richard Goodall and I came to Japan from New Zealand.
From New Zealand.
If you've heard of it. 63 years ago, 1960.
At what age did you come to Japan?
I was 27. I was born on a farm, a dairy farm in New Zealand. I married when I was still in New Zealand, the most beautiful girl in the world at the time, and I got 2 children before I came to Japan.
Okay.
One of them is right here in the house with us now. Her name is Christine. She's 63. She was a baby of 4 months when we came to Japan, and I was 27, and I had a son who was already 2 years old.
You came to Japan at the age of 27?
That's right.
1960. How and why did you come to Japan?
I came by boat. It was the cheapest way to travel in those days. New Zealand is so small, we don't have many boats coming to New Zealand. And so we went by plane as far as Australia and then caught a boat and landed at Yokohama.
How long did it take?
About 3 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah.
How was the trip? Like, do you still remember?
There were a lot of Australian people on board, and an Australian couple said to us, "The Japanese will eat your babies." I had a son of 2, but my wife and I weren't very much worried about that. And on the boat, so that we paid less money, we had a cabin with no window. All we had was the sea, but that was good for making our babies go to sleep. Then it was beautiful traveling in the daytime, going through Indonesia and seeing all the beautiful islands, and Hong Kong. I love Hong Kong, and I think we had 3 days there and came to Kobe.
Did your parents come to Japan to see you?
No.
Not at all?
When I told my parents that I was going to become a missionary and go to Japan, my mother said, "But you've got to know the Bible." My father, he was angry, and he said, "I made you an accountant so that you would manage our subdivision of our farm land." And I threw up my arms, and I didn't know what to say to him. We had always done everything he said. I was married by this time, so I didn't have to live with my father, and we just made our own way to Japan when we wanted to. But we had no farewell because nobody sent us off. We only got the visa to enter Japan 12 hours before our plane left for Australia. And so on the way to the airport, I went to the travel agent. I got him to give me the tickets. How we did it is a miracle of God. I don't know how we got through immigration and customs.
Like, which visa was at the time?
Missionary Visa.
Oh, they have missionary visa. I didn't know that. They have missionary visa here in Japan?
Yes, they did.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh, Japan is very good like that. Very welcoming. Their problem was not because we were missionaries, but they said, "You got no salary." That's a problem. But my senior missionary lady in Tokyo went to the Homusho Department of Justice, and she put pressure on them one day. And she said, "Please give visas to the Goodalls." They said yes, and she sent the cablegram, and she put the numbers of the visas in the cablegram. When we came through the customs and the immigration and the boarding on the plane, we just gave them the numbers. We couldn't give them any visas, no passports. They were 600 kilometers away waiting for the stamps. We got out of New Zealand with no passports, no visas, nothing. But we got away.
I think at the time, not many foreign people in Japan. And now Japan became popular, like, past 10, 20 years. But at the time, like, it's right after the war, right? So, like, what brought you to Japan?
Well, I became a Christian and got baptized when I was 17 in 1950. And I read in a magazine about a New Zealand man who came to Japan as a missionary. Oh. And so I thought, I'm going to Japan as a missionary. And 10 years later, I came But I had a family already and a job and everything. But I've lived happily ever after.
So you came to Japan. Where did you live at first?
We had a senior missionary whom I never met. And he built a church in Tokyo. And he built a little apartment at the back of the church. And he got a bad back, had to go back to Ireland. And he said, by letter, you can live in my house. Oh, okay. So we lived in expensive Tokyo without paying much rent.
All of your family?
Yes, with 2 children, that's right.
What was 1960s Japan like, especially Tokyo?
It's hard to tell you briefly, but I didn't have any demands that I wanted to make of Japan. So I'd tell you just a little about my first impressions. The trains were always full. They had people to push the passengers onto the trains in Tokyo.
Same as now. Yeah.
We loved it. And my first 2 years were the happiest years of my life.
Really?
And, yes, and the easiest years, just studying Japanese every day. My wife had 2 children, so she went to Japanese language school 3 days a week, and I went 5 days a week. We went in the Ginza, and I had my daughter, and I pickabacked her in the Ginza, like a Japanese person. That was a great experience. We traveled everywhere. We were members of the church, of course, and all the people were very kind to us and helped us. In the middle of the night, in Shinjuku, I lived in Shinjuku.
Oh, really?
Shinanamachi was my station. I heard a noise, a very strange noise, every night. I thought, oh, that's something religious, but it's not Christian. And I found out later what it was. It was Sobaya-san. He was telling everybody that he has soba to sell at midnight.
Same as ramen, same as sweet potatoes, Beo.
I love sweet potatoes. And I eat natto.
You like natto?
Yes, I like it more than my wife does. And my wife is Japanese because I married again.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, really? When did you?
13 years ago. After my first wife died, of course. Her name is Yuko, and she's from Asahikawa.
Hokkaido.
Yes, and she was a member of my church.
So, at the time, I assume there are not many foreign people, especially Western people, in the 60s, Japan, even in Tokyo. How was it like? Did you have any friends from abroad?
Not many. What friends we did have were all missionaries. There was an American couple who were very good to us, invited us to their home for Christmas, but we never felt isolated or lonely. The Japanese people were very friendly, very nice. I remember a doctor, not a medical doctor, but an engineer, I think he was. He invited us to his home, and we enjoyed a meal at his house. We didn't feel bad at not having many English-speaking people to hang out with.
Did you expect to live in Japan such a long time when you came to Japan at first?
I had no idea how long we would be here.
Did you come to Japan temporarily or indefinitely?
Oh, no. Until we died.
Oh, really?
And my wife died here about 10 years ago.
So where did you go after Tokyo?
2 years Japanese language study. But then we finished language and went to Karuizawa. Somebody gave us a house to live in for 1 month. And I asked God, please, where? And the answer came back, you work with the New Zealand missionaries who are now living in Hakodate, in Hokkaido. I sent a cablegram from Karuizawa to New Zealand because my senior missionaries were in New Zealand that time. And I said, can we come to Hakodate and work with you? And when he went to the post office in New Zealand to send the cablegram, he asked God, if I'm to say yes to the Goodalls, would you please have one red car outside the post office? And when he got to the post office, there wasn't one car there. There were 2, and they were red. So he said in his answer, in his cablegram, come. So we came to Hakodate, and we worked with him for about 1 or 2 years, and then started a new church ourselves in Sapporo.
You've been in Japan 60 years two years in Tokyo, 58 years in Hokkaido.
Yes, 61 it is in Hokkaido.
Wow.
It's a long time, but happy.
Before we continue interviews, I want to share the best way to learn Japanese from my perspective. That's Preply. Today's video is sponsored. Preply is a user-friendly language learning platform that connects you directly with native speakers and experienced teachers. It's designed to make language learning more interactive and personal. Instead of just repeating phrases, you will engage in real conversation and learn cultural nuances, making your study sessions both enjoyable and effective. I personally believe that consistency is key when learning languages. Many people struggle because they don't stick with it regularly. However, Preply makes it easier to stay committed. With over 1,500 Japanese tutors who are not only experienced in teaching, but also know how to keep you motivated. You can find a tutor who can fit your schedule and helps you reach your learning goals. What I think really efficient about Preply is that it offers one-on-one interactions, ensuring you get the attention and guidance needed to improve Japanese skill effectively. You can receive 50% discount on the first lesson at Preply by clicking the link in the description. Let's start learning Japanese by signing up Preply. And who knows, once you become fluent enough, maybe I can interview you. Okay, let's get back to interviews. You've raised your children in Japan as a non-Japanese person, right? Could you share your experience raising kids here?
Money talks a lot and very loudly. When it came time for us to educate our children, we could see that the Japanese system was very good and almost free, and we had no objection to sending our children to Japanese schools, and they went right through. But none of them have been to university in Japan.
So your children, some of them from Japan, right? Born in Japan.
Mostly.
Mostly. And their native language are Japanese?
Yes. My wife and I always spoke English to our children, and they learned Japanese without paying any money, just by talking to their friends, and they had many friends. So life was very good for us because we had our children with us. After they became adults, they said, thank you for bringing them up in Japan. They're very happy that we did. Some of my children, not all of them, but some of them have married Japanese people and have children they call halves. They don't like that. And I have grandchildren with German blood, Japanese and New Zealand. And I think there's one more, Australian, but that's the same as New Zealand.
Yeah, one of them I interviewed, Joshua.
Oh, yes, I've seen it. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you think it's hard to raise your kids as bilingual?
My wife made recordings of English stories. I can hear her saying, turn the page. And so she taught them a little English like that. Every 5 or 6 years, we took them back to New Zealand. And so they heard real English.
Also, even though you've been in Japan whole life, but you go back and forth?
Many times. Well, my wife got cancer, and she had an operation in New Zealand, and the doctor said, come back next year, come back 2 years' time. And so we were able to go back quite often. And when I got the job, part-time teaching at a Japanese university, they paid me good money, and so there was no problem with the money going back to New Zealand.
What about your early life in Japan? You used to go back often, or?
We didn't go back often at first. We were young and happy and healthy. So we didn't have to go back to New Zealand very much in the early days. When we got a little older, I think it was very nice for my wife to go back to New Zealand often to see her sisters, her parents, and me to see my parents and other people. So God was very kind to us, and He let us go back often.
So I think many people wonder, like, how did you actually manage to stay in Japan? Because many foreigners, many non-Japanese people come to Japan, live in Japan, but they need to leave because of the visa. But you be able to live in Japan 60 years. Is it like always missionary visa, or you got permanent residency?
We used to change our visas every 3 years, but they just simply extended it, put their stamp on, and that was all. 30 or 40 years ago, we applied for permanent visa.
Was it easy at the time compared to now?
Very easy. Yeah, I don't know why.
As someone who lives in Japan 60 years, what do you like and you don't like about Japan?
I don't like shiokara. But I'm happy because the Japanese people don't like it either. They've never made me eat it. Or some like it, I think. Or I like sukiyaki. I had sukiyaki yesterday. And I like, oh yes, hotate. But I don't like the price of hotate, so I just look at them. But sometimes people give me hotate if they want me to translate something for them. They don't give me money for translating it. They give me a gift. Maybe they give me hotates.
Okay, what about the people? What about the people? Yeah, what do you like about Japanese people? And then what's something you don't understand about Japanese people?
Japanese people, I like their politeness. I'm used to it. Sometimes it grates, I'm sure. And one thing I don't like is taking off your shoes at the door. In Tokyo, I lived in a Western-style house.
Okay, so you used to wear shoes at home?
Yes, but my senior missionary from New Zealand, he came to visit me. He lived in Hakodate, but he came to visit me. And he looked at my genkan, and he ran his finger down it, and he said, "You've been coming in here with your shoes on." So I had to take my shoes off ever after that, even in Tokyo, even in a Western-style house. But I'm still not good at it.
What do you mean? You must get used to it.
Oh yes, oh yes, yes.
What do you mean? You're still not good at it?
I don't like it.
you still don't like it.
When I go out into my porch, I look around the neighborhood to see if there's anybody looking, if I want to leave my slippers on when I go into the porch. But I shouldn't do that.
What about society? Japan as a country? Anything you particularly like or dislike?
I like snow because it's nice color and it covers up the dirt and you can play with it. And I get exercise taking it to the river. I get on well with my neighbors. I have good neighbors here, good neighbors there, good neighbor on this side. And I go to the neighborhood association. I'm a member.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And they accept me perfectly. They're very nice.
People treat you as local, same as other people.
They accept me
That's nice.
perfectly. And if I would become the kaicho, I think they would say, yes, yes.
So we talk a little bit about Japanese people, how Japanese people see non-Japanese people, especially Westerns. Do you think it has changed?
I think the situation hasn't changed very much, but I think modern Japanese people accept foreign people very easily, more easily now.
Not just people in Tokyo?
I think everywhere is about the same. And if we speak Japanese to them, they are very happy. I think Japanese people, if we just spoke one word, they would still be a bit frightened now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. People say that Japanese people kind of afraid, scared of foreigners.
I think it's just a language barrier. Myself, I may be wrong.
But that's true, because you speak Japanese. So that's why people accept you as a local. You know, I've heard a lot of stories, like, you know, when foreign people speak Japanese, but Japanese people try to answer in English, even though they speak Japanese fluently. Like, does it happen to you still when you meet new people?
Yes, sometimes. But it's never with a bad feeling. They feel, oh, this foreigner, I want him to relax. So I will speak to him in English. So I never have a problem with it.
What are the differences between Hokkaido and the rest of Japan? It's very different, I assume.
Every year in the winter, I remember, oh, winter is cold. I forget in the summer. God helps me to forget.
And also food, the beer, Sapporo beer, like food, it's all famous, right? Like popular.
Oh, yes, I think so. Potatoes from Tokachi.
Cheese.
Cheese, yes. New Zealand is a cheese country.
Oh.
Milk and cheese are number one.
Oh, same as Hokkaido.
Yes, I'm very much at home.
So what about people? Let's say people in Osaka are quite, you know, famous for being friendliness and stuff like that. But what about Hokkaido?
I think they are different from Honshu people. They are probably ganko, obstinate, because of the cold. They're always fighting the cold. Of course, there is a Hokkaido ben, a Hokkaido accent, but I only know a few of those. I don't know them all. When Japanese people speak among themselves, I don't catch it very much. Even if they speak Hyojungo, I can't catch it.
I think that's true. Even for me, if I meet like elders here, like, you know, countryside, I think I couldn't understand much of it. Yeah, even as a Japanese person. Yeah,
I think so.
You speak Japanese. You went to language school when you first came to Japan, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing you did? Or
I taught myself a little. I was an accountant in New Zealand, and I have a qualification to do boki kansa, auditing, we call it in English or in New Zealand. I used to go to Tokyo to do the auditing for a Christian bookshop. When I went to Tokyo, it took me 24 hours from Hakodate.
by?
Train.
Oh.
Never fly, too much money. But
There's no Shinkansen at the time?
now, but in those days, was by boat to Aomori. So I would write the kanji on the train, but not for 24 hours,
yeah. You need some sleep, yeah.
and I still do it.
Oh, you practice kanji still now?
I do. I can
That's
read
quite
them.
impressive, yeah.
I can read them, but I can't remember how to write them.
No, I think I will find difficult time to write in kanji as well because I don't write anymore. I can read, but I don't need to write technically. But anyway, so could you share what's the important thing in learning Japanese in Japanese? 日本語の勉強で大事なこと。
日本語を覚えること大切で、ニュージーランドに違う信仰を持ってくる人がいれば、自分の母国語で喋るのは非常な失礼だと思います。愛してくれてわざわざ来るんであれば、私の言葉まで愛してほしいです。いくらか努力してほしいです。
やっぱりその国に行くとしたら、その国のカルチャーにアダプトしたりとか。
私はそう当然だと思います。
今でもわからない日本語はありますか？
でも問題はね、この耳。
毎日今何してますか？
書きました。
お、どうもす。
葬式を知識します。商売としてするんじゃなくて頼まれて、そして結婚式をよく。
確かに日本人チャーチです
ごいです。
結婚する人多いですね。
すごいです。
でも北海道だと車ないと生活できない。
そうですね。はい。いつまでも運転しなくてもいいです。今日孫が運転しました。自分から進んで私の車で。
When's the last time you went back to New Zealand?
6 years ago.
Oh, quite recent.
It's a long time.
When's the last time you went outside of Hokkaido?
In April, I went to a wedding. My wife's nephew had his wedding at a beautiful hotel in Shinjuku.
You still go back to Tokyo sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes. It must be totally different.
Yes. 60 years later.
Yeah.
I like Tokyo. I like it because I know it. I remember there are many places I've never been to in Tokyo, but I like it. I'm home there. I'm happy.
Do you think Japan became poor? You know that 70s Japan, 80s Japan, which was the best time of Japan economically.
Let me tell you this. When I came to Japan 63 years ago, 1 New Zealand dollar was 504 yen. But Japan got stronger and stronger, and that 504 yen went way down to 42. Yes, 42. So it was not very good being a New Zealander for us then. But I don't remember. I don't remember being financially poor. It was 60 yen for a long time, but now it's 87 yen. It's gone way up very strong. So I think this is a very good time for New Zealanders
Come here.
and other people to come to Japan.
And that's why people come here right now, like so many tourists. Even in Hokkaido, there's so many tourists. Sapporo. Do you find that 70s, 80s Japan has more like energy as a country?
I'm not an economist. I'm an accountant. But of course, I do think about money and costs and value and exchange rates. When I came to Japan, I got one big shock, among others, of course, and that was that people go to work and they seem to be grateful that somebody employed them. They never ask for a holiday. Some of them never had one holiday until they had worked for several months. And then they would get a holiday, and maybe that was 1 day a week. But in New Zealand, right from when I was a boy, 1.5 days holiday, and then about 50 years, 60, 70 years ago, we have 2 days holiday every week. Nobody works hard. They have Social Security, and they pay big tax, Social Security tax, but they don't work hard. They don't seem to. The Japanese people in the 60s worked their skin off. They worked so hard, and they never demanded a holiday. They never asked when they got work how much their wages would be. They just took whatever wages they were given. I was shocked.
That's true. I never realized that actually Japanese people apply for the job without knowing how much the salary would be.
Is that still true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one, because now it's hard to get a job.
Yeah.
That's why like they cannot choose basically.
Yeah.
Any company that accepts you want to go. Maybe that's why. Last question. What's it like living in Japan since 1960s?
I think the big thing that I've experienced is fulfillment. I think I've been much happier than I would have been in New Zealand. If I stayed in New Zealand, I would have had a good job, a good income, a batch peso. We call it a batch by the sea, and a boat, and weekend holidays. Now I never have a holiday at the weekends. I holiday whenever I want to, and sometimes I go back to New Zealand for 6 months.
For 6 months?
The first time, 10 months. I was free.
That's nice.
Nobody gave me a salary, so I can do what I like.
So if you stayed in New Zealand, you have a good holidays, good income and stuff like that, right? But you stayed in Japan. How was it?
Much more satisfaction in Japan, and you can't buy it with money.
Obviously, you came to Japan when the country was not popular overseas. Now it is. What do you think about it?
I never think about it. I read the headlines in the newspaper or on television. And so I think about some things, but I don't really have a big opinion of it. We have to have money. We have to work. I listen to Mr. Kishida.
Prime Minister?
Yeah, but my wife doesn't like him.
Is there anything you want to say at the end?
Welcome to Japan. It might be an exaggeration, but it's the highest halls of human happiness. You won't regret coming to Japan, and I hope you have a good time. Don't worry about anything bad happening, and you listen to what my friend Takashi says. I'll see you in Japan. Come and see me.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you for watching so far. How was it? That was interesting. I really enjoyed talking with him. It was such a nice experience. Something has changed, something hasn't changed yet, but this is my first time to visit Sapporo. This city is so beautiful. I highly recommend visiting here if you come to Japan in winter. You will see something that you never see in Tokyo. Okay, anyway, thank you for watching. If you like this video, click the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. If you have any question you want me to ask people in Japan, please leave a comment too. See you next time.